You have been performing a task you never agreed to. Since you were small, perhaps before you could even speak, you sensed something broken in the emotional atmosphere around you and decided unconsciously that fixing it was your responsibility. This is not a metaphor. This is the actual mechanism by which anxious attachment embeds itself into the architecture of your psyche. And what Jung discovered about this pattern still makes therapists uncomfortable today, because the cure is not what anyone expects. Hi, I'm Roman, your guide into the unconscious, and today I want to talk to you about something close to my heart. I'm an anxious person, and at some point in my life, this translated into an anxious attachment style for me. And some people might discredit it, but I won't. And I won't give you a quick fix either. Not because I don't want to, but because there are none. It takes time, but it gets better. Discovering the psychology of Carl Jung really changed my life, and I hope it can do the same for you. Let me tell you what anxious attachment actually is beneath all the relationship advice and attachment theory frameworks. It is not about your romantic patterns. It is not about texting too much or needing reassurance or checking their location. Those are symptoms. The disease lives deeper. Anxious attachment is the shadow projection of the abandoned child onto every intimate relationship you will ever have. It is your psyche's desperate attempt to repair the mother wound by turning every partner into the mother archetype and demanding they finally get it right this time. The mother archetype. We must speak clearly about this because your healing depends on understanding what we actually mean. When Jung spoke of the mother, he was not talking about the woman who raised you, though she carries this archetype. He was speaking of something older than any individual person. The mother archetype is the first container of being itself. It is the primordial field in which your consciousness either learned it was safe to exist or learned that existence itself required constant vigilance and performance. When this container becomes unreliable, when the mother archetype is distorted or absent or ambivalent in those crucial early years, the entire inner world organizes around that void. And if you are an empath, if you came into this world with heightened sensitivity, the suffering multiplies in ways the collective cannot comprehend. Because you did not just experience the wound, you absorbed it. You felt the emotional currents in your environment before you had language to name them. You walked into rooms and knew tension before words were spoken. You became the child who listens too deeply, feels too much, carries burdens that were never yours to carry. You mistook your intuitive capacity for responsibility, as if you were born to heal pain that existed before your birth, as if the unspoken sorrows of your lineage were debts your unconscious believed must be paid. This is the particular curse of the anxious attacher who is also an empath. You inherited emotional tasks from the lineage itself. Grandmother's unexpressed grief, father's suppressed rage, mother's unmet needs that she projected onto you before you could walk. And your sensitive system absorbed all of it and concluded that managing the emotional atmosphere was your purpose, that keeping others regulated was how you earned the right to exist. Let me describe the pattern with precision because you need to see it clearly. You enter relationships not seeking partnership, but seeking the mother you never reliably had. You are looking for someone to finally provide the consistent containment, the unwavering presence, the unconditional acceptance that the mother archetype failed to deliver. But here's the mechanism that keeps you trapped. You do not consciously know this is what you are doing. The need lives in your shadow, so you project it outward. You see your partner as needing you, as requiring your constant attention and emotional management, when actually you are the one performing the ancient task of trying to keep the mother archetype stable and present by being perfect enough, attuned enough, available enough. The projection mechanism works like this. Your unconscious terror of abandonment, which is really the abandoned child's ongoing catastrophe, gets externalized. You become hypervigilant to your partner's moods, their tone of voice, the gap between text messages, any sign that they might be withdrawing. But you experience this as caring about them, as being a good partner, as love. You do not recognize it as your own unintegrated need for containment being acted out in the theater of relationship. You believe your partner is the source of your anxiety when actually they are the screen onto which you are projecting your original wound. Jung documented a case that mirrors this pattern with disturbing accuracy. A person who appeared charming, successful, functional to the outside world. They had relationships, a career, social graces. But beneath the performance lived catastrophic inner fragmentation. The psyche was organized entirely around managing how others perceived them, around preventing abandonment, around being whatever the other person needed so they would not leave. There was no stable center, no sense of self that existed independent of the other's gaze. Just an abandoned child wearing an adult costume, desperately performing tasks to earn the right to be held. Does this sound familiar? Because this is what anxious attachment actually is when you strip away the psychological jargon. It is living from the wounded child instead of the self. It is organizing your entire existence around preventing the catastrophe of abandonment that already happened decades ago, but that your nervous system still believes is happening now, in every relationship, in every moment of disconnection. And here's what makes this truly disturbing. Most of what passes for healing actually deepens the wound. You read the books, you go to therapy, you work on yourself, you practice self-love affirmations and set boundaries and communicate your needs. But if you are doing all of this from the wounded child, if you are trying to fix yourself so that finally you will be worthy of the mother's consistent love, you are still performing the original task. You are still trying to earn what should have been freely given. The wound is not healing. It is just becoming more sophisticated in its expression. This is shadow projection with absolute conviction. You believe completely that your anxiety comes from your partner's behavior. That if they would just text back faster, reassure you more, be more consistent, then you would feel safe. You cannot see that you are projecting your need for the mother onto them. You cannot see that no partner can ever fill the mother void, because that void exists in your psyche, not in external reality. And so you stay trapped in the pattern, moving from relationship to relationship, always finding evidence that people are unreliable, always experiencing abandonment, never recognizing that you are unconsciously creating the exact conditions that confirm your original wound. Then there is the spiritual bypassing trap. You discover meditation, mindfulness, positive thinking. You tell yourself you are healed. You perform gratitude and self-compassion. But underneath the spiritual performance, the mother void remains untouched. You have simply covered the wound with prettier language. This is not integration. This is suppression wearing a spiritual mask. And your unconscious knows the difference, even if your conscious mind does not. The difference between suppression and integration is everything. Suppression is pushing the wound down, covering it up, pretending it does not exist, while it continues to run your behavior from the shadows. Integration is descending into the wound itself, facing the abandoned child directly, meeting the mother archetype on its own terms, and bringing what has been unconscious into the light of awareness. One keeps you trapped, the other sets you free. But freedom comes at a cost most people are not willing to pay, because true healing of anxious attachment is not peaceful. It is not gentle. It requires you to stop performing the task you've been performing since childhood. It requires you to face the terror that if you stop managing everyone's emotions, if you stop being hypervigilant, if you stop trying to earn love, you will be abandoned. And that terror feels like death, because to the wounded child, abandonment is death. But you are not a child anymore, and the mother who failed you cannot be repaired through your romantic partners. The only way out is through the wound itself. You have been trying to heal your anxious attachment by becoming a better partner, by communicating more clearly, by setting boundaries, by reading the books and doing the meditations and journaling about your feelings. And none of it has worked. Not really. Because you've been treating the symptom while the wound continues to bleed in the darkness. Jung understood what modern psychology refuses to acknowledge. Your anxious attachment is not a relationship problem. It is a shadow problem. And the shadow does not negotiate. It does not respond to positive affirmations or breathing exercises or couples therapy. The shadow responds only to recognition, to being seen, to being brought into the light of consciousness where it can finally stop running the show from behind the curtain. The shadow, in this context, is the abandoned child who never received the mother's consistent presence. The part of you that learned the world is fundamentally unreliable, that love must be earned through performance, that your needs are too much, that you are too much. This child lives in your unconscious, and every time you enter an intimate relationship, this child takes over. You think you are a functioning adult choosing a partner, but you are actually a terrified child scanning for signs of abandonment, testing for proof of love, seeking the mother you never had. And your partner, no matter how loving, no matter how present, can never fill this void because they are not supposed to. They cannot repair what was broken before they arrived. They cannot become the archetypal mother your psyche is desperately seeking. This is the projection mechanism Jung spent his entire career trying to help people understand. You are projecting your need for the mother onto your partner, and then you are devastated when they fail to meet this need, because it is an impossible need. It is not a need that belongs in adult romantic relationships. It is a need that should have been met in childhood, and because it was not, it has become a psychic wound that distorts every intimate connection you attempt to form. Your partner feels this. They feel the weight of your unmet childhood needs pressing against them. They feel your anxiety as a demand they cannot satisfy. They feel themselves failing you, even when they are doing everything right. And eventually, they either become exhausted by the role you have unconsciously assigned them, or they become the abandoning mother, confirming your deepest fear and completing the cycle. But here is what changes everything. Here is the catastrophic awakening that Jung called the beginning of true individuation. The moment you stop trying to get your partner to fix your anxiety and start facing the mother wound directly. Not intellectually, not theoretically, not by understanding it as a concept, but by descending into the actual psychic space where this wound lives and meeting it on its own terms. This is not comfortable work. This is not the kind of healing that gets celebrated on social media. This is the kind of work that requires you to sit with the abandoned child in your psyche and feel the full weight of what was never given, what was never safe, what was never enough. It requires you to stop running from this pain through relationships, through achievement, through people-pleasing, through any of the 1,000 ways you have learned to avoid the void. Jung called this process active imagination, and it is one of the most powerful and most terrifying techniques in depth psychology. You create a conscious dialogue with the unconscious. You invite the wounded child to speak. You ask the child what it needs, what it fears, what it has been trying to tell you through your anxious attachment patterns. And you listen, not to fix it, not to make it go away, but to witness it, to give it the attention it has been screaming for through your relationship anxiety. And something shifts when you do this. The child begins to feel seen, the wound begins to feel acknowledged, and slowly, excruciatingly slowly, you begin to realize that you can provide for yourself what the mother could not provide. You can become your own container. This is not about reparenting yourself in some shallow therapeutic sense. This is about a fundamental reorganization of the psyche. It is about the ego developing a relationship with the self, the deeper organizing principle of your being that Jung identified as the source of true wholeness. When you stop projecting the mother archetype onto your partners and start accessing the archetypal mother within your own psyche through your connection to the self, everything changes. You stop needing your partner to soothe you because you can hold your own anxiety. You stop seeking constant validation because you have developed an internal witness. You stop testing for love because you are no longer trying to repair the past through the present. But I need you to understand something crucial. This transformation does not happen because you want it to happen. It does not happen because you read the right book or follow the right protocol. It happens because you are willing to endure the psychological catastrophe of facing what you have been running from your entire life. Jung was explicit about this. True individuation, true healing, requires a death, not a physical death, but a psychological death, the death of the identity you have built around your wound. The death of the person who needs to be anxious to feel alive, who needs to be worried to feel connected, who needs to be hypervigilant to feel safe. That person has to die, and you have to be willing to let them die. And to me, this was a great realization. As an anxious, I can think for months about a situation I don't want to find myself in. For example, I hate flying. I'm afraid. I know there are less probability to die in a plane than in a car. Planes rarely go down. But I don't care. I hate it. And I will lose hundreds of hours thinking about a 2-hour flight. The threat is so much worse than the actual flight. And the trick is to accept that you will feel pain. Accepting this reality prevents you from giving yourself even more pain. Can you name something similar for you? Maybe it's the fear of facing a lot of people, or of meeting an ex at an event. Let me know in the comments. When you return from that small act of acknowledgement, you will have done something most people never do. You will have made the unconscious conscious, even if only for a moment. You will have named what has been running your life from the darkness. And that is where real transformation begins. Not in understanding, in action, in the willingness to see what you have been refusing to see. Now we come to the 7 signs of genuine integration. These are not the signs you think they are. These are not about feeling better or being happier or having perfect relationships. These are about fundamental psychological shifts that indicate you have done the work of integrating the mother wound, of withdrawing the projection, of becoming whole. The first sign is the most obvious and the most difficult. You stop seeking the mother in your partners. You stop unconsciously expecting them to provide the emotional containment, the constant reassurance, the proof of love that you never received. You recognize when you are slipping into this pattern, and you catch yourself. You feel the pull of the old wound, but you do not act from it. You have become your own container. You can hold your own anxiety without immediately reaching for your phone to text them, without needing them to fix your emotional state, without making your inner chaos their responsibility. The second sign is more subtle. Triggers do not disappear. This is critical. Anyone who tells you that healing means you stop getting triggered is lying or deluded. Triggers do not disappear when you integrate the shadow. They transform. You begin to recognize them as messengers from the unconscious. When you feel that familiar spike of anxiety, when your partner does not text back immediately, and you feel the old panic rising, you do not spiral into the story. You pause. You recognize this as the abandoned child speaking. You thank the child for trying to protect you, and you choose a different response. The trigger becomes information rather than instruction. The third sign disturbs people. You develop what Jung called selective hardness. You are no longer performing softness to earn love. You are no longer making yourself small to make others comfortable. You have integrated enough of your shadow to know that your darkness is not something to apologize for. You can say no without guilt. You can disappoint people without collapsing. You can hold your ground even when others are upset with you. This makes you uncomfortable to be around for people who are still projecting, who are still performing, who are still trying to earn love through people-pleasing. They will call you cold. They will say you have changed. They are right. You have. The fourth sign is the one that proves you have done the deep work. You can hold your own anxiety without outsourcing it. When the fear comes, when the uncertainty rises, when you do not know if the relationship will last, or if you are loved, or if you are enough, you can sit with that not knowing. You do not need to immediately resolve it through seeking reassurance. You do not need to create a crisis to test the relationship. You do not need to make your partner responsible for your emotional regulation. You have developed the internal capacity to be with your own experience, no matter how uncomfortable. This is the mark of genuine integration. This is what it means to have withdrawn the mother projection. The fifth sign follows naturally. The need for constant validation transforms into self-witnessing. You develop an internal observer, what Jung called the transcendent function, the capacity to hold both the wounded child and the integrated adult in consciousness simultaneously. You can feel the need for validation rising and simultaneously witness yourself feeling it. You are no longer identified with the need. You are the space in which the need arises. This creates a fundamental shift in how you relate to your anxiety. It is no longer who you are, it is something you are experiencing. And from that witnessing position, you have choice. The sixth sign is perhaps the most liberating. Relationships become chosen rather than compulsive. You are no longer driven into relationships by the unconscious need to repair the mother wound. You are not scanning every potential partner for their ability to fill the void. You can be alone without it feeling like abandonment. You can be in relationship without it feeling like survival. You choose connection from wholeness rather than from lack. And this completely changes the quality of your relationships because you are no longer bringing the desperation of the wounded child. You are bringing the presence of someone who has faced their darkness and integrated it. The seventh sign is the most dangerous. You make others uncomfortable, not because you are trying to, but because you are no longer participating in the collective unconscious patterns. You are no longer playing the game of projection and counter-projection that most relationships are built on. You can see when others are projecting onto you and you do not take it on. You can see when you are being invited into old patterns and you decline. You have become psychologically sovereign, and this threatens everyone who is still asleep. Jung warned about this. The individuated person becomes a mirror that shows others their own unconsciousness. And most people would rather destroy the mirror than face what it reflects. This is the dangerous freedom that comes from integrating the mother wound and healing anxious attachment at its root. You are free, but freedom is not comfortable. Freedom is not safe. Freedom means you have to live without the familiar pain, without the identity you built around your wound, without the story that has defined you. And most people, when they reach this threshold, turn back. They choose the familiar suffering over the unknown freedom. They return to the anxious attachment patterns because at least those patterns are known. But you are still here, which means some part of you is ready for the catastrophic awakening, ready to face the mother wound, ready to become whole.